Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's headline is Mr. Maguffin's Experiences in a Brass Band. It says, in the boarding house last night, after Mr. Maguffin had told a particularly long-winded story, Magruder yawned. Maguffin, I should think you would be a valuable man in a brass band. Mr. Magruder, said Maguffin sternly, you little realize the unpleasant memory revived by your flippant remark. I did belong to a brass band once, but my stay in the organization was characterized chiefly by brevity and violence. That was before I came to New York, when I lived in Eagleville. Some of the boys formed a band, the Eagleville North American Cornet Band, and they wanted me to join, but I had other business, and they went on without me. In the course of time, a member of the Eagleville Blues died, and the band resolved to attend the funeral. It so happened that the bass drummer fell sick on the day prior to the obsequies, and the leader sent for me to take his place. Of course I couldn't refuse, and I went to the headquarters, had the big drum strapped on me, and marched with the band down to the house. There was executed a little preliminary dirge, whose good points I emphasized strongly on the drum. The leader took his E-flat from his lips and stared at me, indignant as I supposed, because I didn't get in heavy enough, and I said to myself, patience, my friend, patience. I'll be on deck when the procession moves, and I was. I have since learned that the entire subsequent misunderstanding arose from my misapprehension of bass drum part at a funeral celebration. It seems that on such occasions, the drum should not be pounded vigorously, but subjected to a soft and continuous irritation, which produces a sort of rumbling, muffled monotone that is supposed to represent grief of a strictly prime A1 band. Now, as I had seen the science of bass drumming illustrated on feastal occasions only, when it seemed to be merely a personal question between the drummer and the drumhead, I governed myself accordingly, and I flung myself with a vehemence that I believe has no parallel in the annals of that noble but bulky instrument. I rose right up on it and let myself loose, resolved that whatever my sacrifice of personal comfort might be, there should be no just ground for complaint against my part of the music. We hadn't gone 10 blocks before the perspiration began to slop over the tops of my boots, but I never let up. And 2 or 3 times when the leader shook his cornet at me, I answered with a series of double efforts that attracted general attention. The crowds on the sidewalk seemed dumbfounded, and the people in the carriages stuck their heads out of the windows and stared at me. There was one curious feature of the general attention that I didn't understand at the time, and that was the behavior of the hearse driver. In front of the house, I had thought him the most solemn-faced man I ever saw, but now he laughed and shook until I thought he would fall off the box. Well, we got to the cemetery, and the last sad rites were over. Then the band began a final dirge, and I gathered myself together for one grand finishing effort. The leader was blowing his wildest wail on the cornet, and the bass horn man was decorating all the corners and angles of the music with enormous patches of sound. Then I shifted the strap down from where it had crawled up around my neck and spit on my hand. I braced up and flourished the drumstick in the air for one great terrific eclipsing boom, and at the same time the sexton raised his shovel, as I at that moment supposed involuntary from an infectious enthusiasm caught from my drumming. Drumstick and shovel descended together, and I realized in an instant that the sexton had mistaken his calling. As a bass drummer, he would have been the unchallenged champion of the world. I was so impressed by his power that I stopped drumming at once and laid down, and I didn't come to until some time after they had carried me home. I never, in all my life, had anything exercise over me such an overpowering narcotizing effect as that shovel did, and I firmly believe it was drugged. Magruder stretched himself and said sleepily, Maguffin, when I shut my eyes, I can't realize the difference in effect between your story and that shovel. This story was originally written by Max Adler in the New York Sun. This story came from the great state of Missouri, being reported in the Iron County Register of March 30th, 1876. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.